Chapter 1, 19 years later. The September sun cast long shadows across King's Cross Station. As the Potter family made their way through the bustling crowd, the air was thick with the scent of steam and excitement. A familiar fragrance that brought a flood of memories to Harry Potter, now in his late 30s, with a few strands of silver threading through his eternally messy black hair. Harry pushed a trolley laden with a trunk and owl cage, his emerald eyes scanning the platform with the vigilance that came from years as head of magical law enforcement. Beside him, Ginny Potter walked with the grace and confidence of a former professional Quidditch player. Her flaming red hair, a trademark of the Weasley family, swayed gently as she guided their youngest child, Lily, through the throng of people. Lily, not yet old enough for Hogwarts, bounced with barely contained excitement, her eyes wide as she took in the magical sights of platform 9 3/4. Ahead of them, their two sons provided a study in contrasts. James Sirius Potter, the eldest, strode confidently in his Hogwarts robes, a mischievous glint in his eyes that would have made his namesakes proud. He called out greetings to friends and basked in the attention that came with being Harry Potter's son. Albus Severus Potter, on the other hand, lagged behind, his face a mask of anxiety. He clutched his trolley with white-knuckled hands, his green eyes, so like his father's, darting nervously from face to face. As they approached the scarlet steam engine, a familiar voice called out over the din, "Harry! Ginny! Over here!" Ron Weasley's tall frame stood out in the crowd, his arm waving enthusiastically. Beside him, Hermione Granger Weasley smiled warmly, her bushy hair barely contained in a practical bun. Their children, Rose and Hugo, stood with them. Rose, practically vibrating with excitement for her first year at Hogwarts. The two families converged, exchanging warm hugs and greetings. As the adults caught up, Rose immediately launched into an animated discussion with Albus about the coming year. "I can't believe we're finally going to Hogwarts." "Oh!" she exclaimed, her eyes shining. "I've read all about it in Hogwarts: A History, of course. But to actually see it, oh, I do hope we're in the same house. What do you think? Gryffindor would be wonderful, wouldn't it?" Albus mumbled a noncommittal response, his eyes fixed on his shoes. Rose, caught up in her excitement, didn't notice her cousin's discomfort, but Harry did. He exchanged a concerned glance with Ginny, who nodded subtly. They had both noticed Albus's increasing anxiety as September 1st approached. As Ron regaled them with a story about a recent Auror mission, punctuated by Hermione's fond eye rolls and corrections, Harry felt a tug on his sleeve. He looked down to see Albus, his young face creased with worry. "Dad," Albus whispered, his voice barely audible over the platform's noise. "Can I talk to you? Alone?" Harry nodded, guiding Albus a few steps away from the group. He knelt down, bringing himself eye level with his son. "What's on your mind, all?" Albus bit his lip, his eyes darting around before finally meeting his father's gaze. "Dad," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "what if I'm in Slytherin?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken fears and expectations. Harry's heart ached for his son, remembering his own fears and insecurities at that age. He took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "Albus Severus Potter," he said softly, but with conviction, "you were named after two headmasters of Hogwarts. One of them was a Slytherin, and he was probably the bravest man I ever knew." Albus' eyes widened slightly, but the worry didn't leave his face. But just say, then Slytherin House will have gained an excellent student, won't it? Harry interrupted gently. Listen, all. I know there's a lot of history and expectation that comes with being a Potter. But I want you to know that it doesn't matter to us what house you're in. Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, or Slytherin. They've all produced outstanding witches and wizards. You'll make us proud no matter what. But what if I don't fit in anywhere? Albus' voice was small, vulnerable. What if I'm not brave like a Gryffindor, or smart like a Ravenclaw, or cunning like a Slytherin? Harry placed his hands on Albus' shoulders, looking directly into his eyes. Oh, listen to me. You are your own person. You don't have to be exactly like anyone else, not me, not your mom, not your namesakes. You'll find your place, I promise. And if it really matters to you, you'll be able to choose Gryffindor over Slytherin. The Sorting Hat takes your choice into account. Really? Albus asked, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. It did for me, Harry said, with a smile, remembering his own sorting so many years ago. The Hat wanted to put me in Slytherin, but I chose Gryffindor. Albus' jaw dropped. You? The Hat wanted to put you in Slytherin? Harry nodded, chuckling at his son's shocked expression. See? Things aren't always as simple as they seem. Whatever house you end up in, it'll be the right one for you. And we'll love you just the same. As understanding dawned on Albus's face, the whistle blew, signaling the train's imminent departure. There was a sudden flurry of activity around them. As students rushed to board, parents called out last minute reminders, and younger siblings wailed at being left behind. Come on, all, Harry said, standing up. Let's get you on that train. They rejoined the group, where final hugs were being exchanged. Ginny pulled Albus into a tight embrace, whispering words of encouragement in his ear. James, already halfway onto the train, called out, "See you at Christmas, losers," before disappearing into a carriage with his friends. As Albus prepared to board, Rose bounced up to him. Come on, all. Let's find a compartment together. Albus nodded, a small smile finally breaking through his worried expression. He turned to his parents one last time. I'll write to you tomorrow. Let you know what house I'm in. We'll be proud of you no matter what, sweetie, Ginny said. Giving him one last hug, Harry helped Albus heave his trunk onto the train, then stood back as his son climbed aboard. As the train began to move, Albus leaned out of the window, his face a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Harry walked alongside, waving until the train gathered speed and curved out of sight. For a moment, Harry stood there, staring at the spot where the train had vanished. 19 years had passed since he had stood on this platform as a student. Yet, in many ways, it felt like yesterday. The memories of his own journey, the friends he'd made, the adventures he'd had, the dangers he'd faced, washed over him. Ginny's hand slipped into his, warm and reassuring. He'll be all right, she murmured, understanding his thoughts as she always did. Harry nodded, turning to smile at his wife. I know, he said. They all will. As they made their way back through the barrier with Lily, who was already counting down the days until she could go to Hogwarts, Harry's hand unconsciously moved to his lightning scar. For 19 years, all had been well. The scar had not pained him for 19 years. All was well. But as they stepped back into the Muggle world, a small voice in the back of Harry's mind whispered a question he had long ignored. How long could this peace last? The wizarding world had known dark times before, and Harry, more than anyone, understood how quickly things could change. He pushed the thought aside, focusing instead on Lily's chatter about ice cream and whether they could visit Uncle George's joke shop. Today was a day for new beginnings, for hope, for the next generation to start their own adventures. Whatever the future held, they would face it together, as they always had. Little did Harry know, a new adventure was about to begin, one that would challenge everything he thought he knew about his past, his future, and the very nature of time itself. The wheels of fate were already in motion, set in play by the choices of the past and the dreams of the future. And at the center of it all, unknowingly, stood Albus Severus Potter, a boy with his father's eyes and a destiny all his own.